Here's the e-commerce slider we're going to build today. I have it open in Live Server. It scrolls smoothly, works with buttons, and loads WebP images with JPEG fallbacks. The full code for this slider is available for download. Link in the description. And the best part, it works on a phone too. You can swipe with your fingers just like this. The entire thing is built with plain HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. No libraries. First, let's look at the folder structure. We have an index.html for our markup, a CSS folder with styles.css for our styling, a JS folder with slider.js for the logic, and an images folder for all our product images. This keeps everything organized and easy to follow. Here's the HTML boilerplate we'll use. We have the basic doc type HTML head and body tags. Inside the head, we link our CSS and JavaScript files. The script uses defer, so it loads after the page, keeping things fast. Inside the body, we have a main wrapper, then the slider wrapper, and slider containers. All our slides are already in place. Each image uses the picture element, which lets the browser load a WebP version if it supports it, and fall back to a JPEG if not. Every slide uses the same pattern. WebP for performance, JPEG as a fallback, and descriptive alt text for each product. And the Prev and Next buttons are right here, Previous and Next. Simple button elements we'll use in JavaScript to control the slider. And for our CSS, we set border box on everything, remove default spacing, and center text. The slider is centered with margin 0 auto and has a max width of 400 pixels. It is square-shaped, has rounded corners, and a shadow. Slides line up in a row using Flexbox. Images fill the space, and the Previous and Next buttons sit in the middle on top so you can click them. Now for the JavaScript file. First, we grab the elements we need from the DOM. We have these variables storing the values. Slides is the container holding all our images. Images is a node list of each image inside, and Prev and Next are the buttons for navigation. We'll manipulate these elements with JavaScript to make the slider work. We store the value of the current visible slide in index and assign it a value of 0, since it's the first slide. The showSlide function moves the slider to the desired slide. It takes an argument, I, which is the slide we want to show. Index keeps track of the current visible slide. If I is less than 0, index is assigned the value of images.length minus 1. So, if the target slide I is less than 0, that means we try to go before the first slide. In that case, we set index to the last slide so the slider wraps around. Else if I is greater than or equal to images.length, index is assigned the value of 0. So basically what that is saying is, if the target slide I is bigger than or equal to the total number of slides, that means we tried to go past the last slide. Here, we set index back to 0, so the slider goes to the first slide. Else, index is assigned the value of I. Basically, that just means otherwise, I is a valid slide number, so we just set index to I and show that slide. Here, we use the JavaScript client width property to get the width of the slider container in pixels and store it in slide width. This tells us how far to move the slides so the correct one is fully visible. Then we shift the entire slides container horizontally using transform translate x. By multiplying the current index By the slide width and adding a minus sign, we move the slides left just enough to bring the target slide into view. When someone clicks the previous button, we call Show Slide with Index -1 to move to the slide before the current one. When someone clicks the next button, we call Show Slide with Index +1 to move to the next slide. This lets the buttons control which slide is visible. We create two variables, startX and endX, to store the horizontal position of a touch on the screen. StartX will hold where the touch begins, and endX will hold where the touch ends. We use these values to figure out which way the user swiped. We listen for when a finger first touches the slide's container. When that happens, we record the horizontal position of the touch in StartX. This marks the beginning of the swipe. When the finger leaves the screen, we record the ending horizontal position in endX. Then we call the handle swipe function to figure out if the swipe was left or right and move the slider accordingly. The handle swipe function calculates how far the finger moved horizontally by subtracting startX from nx and storing it in diff. If the swipe distance is more than 50 pixels, we consider it a valid swipe. If diff is negative, the swipe was to the left, so we move to the next slide. If diff is positive, the swipe was to the right, so we move to the previous slide. Here, we set up an automatic slide timer that only runs on larger screens like desktops by checking if the window width is greater than 768 pixels. Every 2 seconds, we call Show Slide with Index +1 to move to the next slide automatically. This keeps the slider moving without user interaction. That's the entire slider logic. Click, swipe, or let it autoplay on desktop. It's all plain JavaScript, plain and simple. The full code for this slider is available for download. Link in the description. Hope this helps, and stay creative.